My name is Maddy Taylor, and I'm going to be talking about parenting and its effect on the emotional development of children. My research question is, how does one style of parenting influence their child's emotional development? I'm going to be looking specifically at 3 of the parenting styles that have been found to be used by most parents and how it affects the child and their upbringing and their emotional regulation as adults. So right now there is quite a bit of research on this topic. I found research relating parenting styles to suicidal ideation, obesity, ADHD, adaptation skills, specifically transitioning to college, substance abuse, and self-esteem. And there was also many more, and I think this is a well talked about topic. And here I have a graph which talks about a specific study that was done, and it just measured the behavioral outcome based on the perceived parenting style of that child's parents. So if you take a look at the permissive style, you have a slightly higher rate of positive behavior from children rather than negative behavior. In the authoritative style, you have a significantly higher rate of positive behavioral outcomes than negative. And with the authoritarian parenting style, there is slightly more negative behavior found than positive behavior. And finally, I included this quote from another study, which is about the how the parenting styles can affect children in different ways. She says, as found in several studies, children educated with an authoritative style hold a greater capacity to cope with negative feelings and experiences, while children of authoritarian and permissive parents are more vulnerable to the development of certain clinical conditions such as depression, which are associated with self-destructive behaviors. Which also leads to the point of research relating to suicidal ideation, substance abuse, etc., are considered self-destructive behaviors. My perspective, the reason why I wanted to do my project on this topic was due to my personal childhood relationship with my parents. I found a lot about them over the years, found out a lot about them, and that had a huge effect on my adult life and how I used emotional regulation, including my romantic relationships had a mirror effect based on my childhood relationship with my parents. And I also took a class called Relationship Science, and I learned about different attachment styles, and I found a huge correlation between the 4 parenting styles and the 4 attachment styles, almost directly. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about my personal journey of healing and reparenting myself and how it kind of relates back to the effect on a child's emotional development and how important it is. So I would say both of my parents strayed away from the authoritative style, which is the style that usually leads to positive behavior. My father tended to use an authoritarian style. He would have very high expectations of me and generally no explanation for how to get there and no feedback when I didn't get there. A lot of the times he would come home after work and be very upset and then take it out by being disappointed in me for not meeting really high expectations. For example, not doing simple chores, not getting A's, not doing anything that, it's not, you can't expect a child to do everything. So as a consequence, I developed severe anxiety, and I also started neglecting my own needs from a very young age, and it took me quite a while to figure that out. And that bled into my romantic relationships, causing an emotionally abusive romantic relationship later on in my adult life, in where I replicated the relationship I had with my father and neglected all of my own needs and sacrificed myself extensively in order to meet the needs of my ex-partner. And also, my mother used a little bit more of permissive and uninvolved style. She would act a little bit more like my friend, especially with, me being so scared of my father that my mother would be that different type of parent to be there for me. And I did develop a little bit of more attachment to her, but with her acting as a friend, she couldn't provide the emotional support of a mother, and that caused me to develop an anxious attachment style, which also did not help with my romantic relationships, and it also built up a lack of self-esteem, which took quite a while to remedy. So, as I kind of mentioned before, these parenting styles affected my adult life much more than my childhood. Of course, they occurred during my childhood, but I didn't really see them play into effect until I had my emotionally abusive romantic relationship and patterns within my relationships and my friendships start to arise after I had left my parents. And this is important because I strongly believe that a lot of people are affected by this, but they don't necessarily know that their mental illnesses and their troubles with relationships are due to the fact that their parents had these types of styles of parenting. Okay. So, I wanted to relate my project to Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. He believed that human development was caused by the environment's effect on an individual, which is exactly what is happening with parenting styles. I believe within his ecological systems theories model, the microsystem, as in the child's immediate environment, is the parent directly, and how the parent's style of parenting directly affects the child, say like expecting a child to get really high grades or not meeting the child's emotional needs, that direct connection and interaction with the child. And then also the macro system of the ecological systems theory is, on a higher level, society's view and expectations of emotional expression and emotional regulation causes parents to develop these parenting styles and also not learn that that's not necessarily a good way to parent. We have a lot of issues in our society in the United States that don't allow specifically men to emotionally express themselves, and as well with a growing feminism movement, some women choose to hide their emotions for fear of being called out as the stereotype that women are emotional and therefore cannot be taken seriously. There's a lot of stigma within both genders. And then as far as emotional regulation and mental health, there is really not a lot of education about that. And it's a really recent movement to get education and awareness about mental health. So it makes sense that my parents and my parents' parents and everyone before that had no idea about emotional regulation and couldn't control their own emotions and mental health. Which, does reveal extremities and makes it kind of obvious that this is something that needs to be addressed and talked about. Hopefully, within my lifetime. So to conclude, I think that society does have the power. Parents aren't intentionally parenting this way. It's a result of their own childhood environment and their own lack of emotional development. The parents that do intentionally parent in a negative way, I think, have different problems, but that is a whole other conversation. So if we as a society continue to stigmatize emotional expression and emotional regulation, our parenting styles will continue to lead to negative behavior in children, which will continue to affect children's development and continue to create children that will go on to parent their children the same way. So now is the time to change that. So what we can do is talk about emotional regulation, talk about emotional expression, allow it, educate our children, so when our children can grow up to have their own children, they will be able to start the process and break the cycle, essentially. So I think we do need to bring awareness to this topic, and hopefully I can start that on my own personal level by parenting my children in an authoritative way when I am a mother. And then also we have the university studies goal. I think my topic fits under both communication and social and ethical responsibility. Communication mainly because I think it's important to communicate the fact that we have these kind of messed up social construct views of family, and also the assets and risks of parenting, and the fact that most parents have no idea how much of an effect their parenting can have on a child, which is really sad. Which leads into the social and ethical responsibility, is that by creating awareness about this topic, we can create a better family structure for our future generations. It's it is a responsibility for those who are aware already to share this knowledge with uneducated parents and future parents. So hopefully that will have a positive effect on future children and future development, as well as the development of emotional regulation in future childhood. And these are my references. Thank you for listening and watching. And I look forward to writing my paper on this.